Hello, Manitoba. Bonjour, Manitoba. Welcome, students and teachers. We are so excited to have you here with us today to experience this virtual Manitoba Chicken Farm Tour with Farmer Rachel. I'm Rachel Plett, and I work with Agriculture in the Classroom, Manitoba. How cool is it that we get to bring a farm to you, whether you're in class, at school, or learning from home? We are very excited to have you join us here today. This event will be recorded and made available on our website for those who may not have been able to attend today. As a reminder, you will need to log into your YouTube account in order to be able to post any questions in the chat within YouTube. We have students joining from the Brandon area, Portage la Prairie, Morris, The Pas, Carmen, Winnipeg, Rivers, Manitoba, and throughout our beautiful province. Teachers and students, please feel free to say hi in the chat. We would love to hear where you are viewing from. Tell us your name and just introduce yourself in there. As many of you know, we did have the opportunity for teachers and students to send in questions ahead of time. So after the farm tour, we will have Rachel answer those questions for you. We do also hope to have time for some live questions today. So during the farm tour, if you have any additional questions, students, teachers, classrooms, feel free to put those in the chat area, and we will do our very best to answer as many of them as we can. Here at Agriculture in the Classroom, we are looking for ways to connect students and teachers to where their food comes from. And we want to thank Rachel for being willing to bring us to her farm, and to Manitoba Chicken Producers for providing us with this tour recording. And now to introduce you to our farmer. Rachel Plett is a third-generation farmer living in southern Manitoba, where she works with her parents and brothers on their mixed grain and broiler chicken farm. She also shares her poultry expertise as a part-time field services technician with Manitoba Chicken Producers. Rachel loves to educate students just like you about her life as a chicken farmer. She shares her passion for farming with students by participating in a variety of school-related agriculture education programs. Some of you may even recognize her from our amazing agriculture adventure. She is the one in the chicken suit at the chicken station. Welcome, Rachel.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
And we're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell everyone a little bit about where you are and what's behind you?
Yeah, so I'm super excited today to tell you and show you that I'm actually just here. I'll move my camera over a little bit. Inside my chicken barn. So here are all my chickens. They are currently 5 days old, so they're just little still. But yeah, this is my broiler barn. This is where your chicken comes from.
Amazing. We're excited to learn even more about what you do every day and how you provide us with delicious chicken to eat. So students, as we move into the farm tour, which we're about to show you here, just a reminder that the chat section is to be used for questions only. So please be respectful and don't use it to chat with your friends or put anything that is inappropriate. We appreciate your help on that. So without further ado, here we go. Let's get a look behind the barn door at Rachel's Broiler Chicken Farm. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Rachel, and I'm super excited today to tell you all about chicken farming and give you a tour of my chicken barn. Just like 97% of farms here in Manitoba, ours is family owned and operated. I am the third generation to work on our family grain farm and chicken farm. I currently work with my parents and my two brothers. So as you can see behind me, these two bins is where we store our chicken feed. So as you can see at the bottom, there is a pipe that goes from below the bins all the way into the barn. So we're really lucky here in Manitoba to be able to raise birds all year round. And one of the reasons why we're able to do that is because we raise them inside a barn. Now there's three major reasons why we're able to do that. One of them being temperature. As you can see, there's snow on the ground here and it's too cold for the birds to be outside. Inside the barn, it's nice and warm. A second reason why we're able to raise them indoors, or why we raise them indoors, is for predators. Coyotes, wolves, foxes, all those kind of animals are predators to chickens. So keeping them in a barn keeps them safe from those animals. And the third reason why we keep them indoors is we want our birds to be healthy when we raise them. And so keeping them indoors, we can take measures such as biosecurity to prevent any disease from coming inside the barn. All right, now I want to take you inside to see my 3-day-old chicks. Come on in. All right, so these are the controllers that pretty much run the entire barn. These controllers, with technology now, we are able to monitor way more things than we ever have been. So some of the things that we have on here is we have sensors throughout the entire barn that give us the temperature at all parts of the barn. So we always know that the barn temperature is consistent throughout the entire barn. These controllers also monitor humidity in the barn, how high it gets, how low it gets. We are able to lower the temperature automatically as the birds get older. The barn needs to be cooler, so these controllers can automatically bring those temperatures down. Another thing that's really great about these controllers is for lighting programs, we have dark periods overnight so that the birds have time to rest. So these controllers gradually bring the lighting down to until it's dark, and then raise it back up when it's time for them to get up in the morning. And the great thing about these things is they can call our cell phones. If there's a problem, we're able to check the barn with this controller whenever we need to. So now we're gonna go into the barn, but first, the big important thing we gotta do is change our boots and sanitize our hands. All right, guys, you ready to go in? Here we go. Alright, as you can see, we are now inside the chicken barn, and it's nice and warm in here, and these are just one of the things I love. I love coming into the barn here and checking on the birds every day, multiple times. Growing up on the farm here, wasn't always a fan of working in the barn because it required me to go and do chores every single day. So grade 4 to grade 5, not always a fan, but as I grew up through junior high and through high school, I was learning to love it more and enjoyed it way more. And after grade 12, I actually took a year off because I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do with my career and my future. And so I worked full-time here on the farm. So I was working here in the chicken barns, but I was also working in the fields, driving tractor, and just doing a whole lot more stuff on the farm. And that caused me to actually decide to go to university at the U of M to the Ag Diploma program, and where I got my diploma in agriculture. So as you can see here now, I'm going to tell you more about what's going on here in the barn. So what we have here on the ground is bedding, and this bedding is actually wheat straw. Wheat straw that we harvested off of our fields, and it's pretty much the stalk of the wheat plant. So what happens is when we harvest it, the stalks of the plant get all chopped up, and we bale them and bring them here into the barn to use as bedding for the birds. It's a great bedding. The birds find it very comfortable, and they're able to act out their natural behaviors such as dust bathing and just peck around in the straw. So as you can see behind me, the chickens are able to run anywhere and everywhere throughout the barn. We call this free run. And so there's no cages in any Manitoba broiler farms or actually across the entire country. We're all cage free for broiler chicken operations. Now, they have access to feed and water all the time, because you can see that the water lines and the feeder lines go all the way to the back end of the barn. Now, I have right beside me, it's a little easier to see, these are the water lines, okay? So this is how the chickens get their water. And how it works is there's these little silver tabs underneath here. We call these water nipples. And what happens is when the chicken pecks at that silver nipple, because it's shiny and chickens are curious little animals, they peck at that silver tab and it allows fresh water to come out of the tap. They stop pecking at it, the water stops. And what's great about these water systems is that they're all enclosed. So there's no debris, there's no dust or any bacteria that can get into the system. So they always are able to drink clean, fresh water all the time. Now, the one right beside it here is the feed pans. Now, what we have underneath the feed pans is chick paper. Now, we put chick paper down when they're young because it attracts the chicks to where the feed is. Now, when the chicks run on this paper, it makes noise, and the chicks like the sound of that noise, so it attracts them to this. We also put extra feed on the paper so that they have nowhere to come for the feed. Now inside the feed pan here is where the feed actually is. And in this pipe right here is an auger. So an auger is pretty much a coil that turns and moves the feed through the pipe and puts it into every single feed pan. So a common question that we do get is, what do chickens eat? So here is a sample of what the birds actually eat. It is filled with grains, minerals, proteins, and vitamins to give them a healthy, nutritious diet. So a common misconception that we often do get is, are there hormones and steroids put inside the chicken feed? That is absolutely false. Since the 1960s, hormones and steroids have been illegal to be given to broiler chickens. So it's only good, nutritious feed that is given to our broilers. So these birds are currently 3 days old, and they'll be ready for market in about 28 to 33 days. Now you may be wondering, well, that's pretty quick. Well, there's a number of reasons why they're able to grow so quickly. One, the genetic makeup of the bird. The second one is the feed, what I talked about before. Healthy, nutritious feed helps them grow quickly. And the last thing that helps them grow quickly is just us taking care of them and managing them and walking through the barns daily and multiple times to make sure everything is running really smoothly. Now, once they've hit their target weight or their markets, then they get taken out of the barn, and then we're left with a dirty barn. Now, this bedding is then called litter or manure, what we call it. And the manure is then taken out with a tractor, and we actually spread it on our fields, which is a great source of fertilizer, and that we can use for plant food for our grain crops. Now, once the manure is taken out of the barn, then we take a pressure washer, we wash the barn completely to make sure it's all clean of any organic matter or debris, so that it's nice and clean for the next flock of chickens that come. Thanks so much for joining me on this tour of my chicken barn. I am super proud to be a part of an industry that can provide healthy local chicken for your family and for my family all year round.
Oh, awesome. That was so amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel, for giving us that inside look into your chicken farm.
Yeah, I'm so happy to do it, and I'm so excited to answer guys' questions about it and just teach you guys, because this is my passion, and I'm so excited to share it with other people.
Amazing. So I wanted to actually start things off just with a quick question of my own. I know in the video your chicks were 3 days old at that time. The chicks that are behind you right now, how old are they?
So these guys, let's see if I can get one to show you up close. So these guys are 5 days old. So I don't know if you can see that good in the camera there. So they're just starting to get a bit bigger. They are starting to get feathers are coming in on their wings. So yeah, 5 days, the feathers start coming in. I can see if I can, there we go. We can open it up.
That.
There
Amazing.
we go. Yeah, oh, now he wants to go in there.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. So as all of you know, we did have some questions that came in from different classrooms across the province before this live event today. So we're going to dive into some of those with Rachel and have her answer those. And then hoping we have time after this portion to dive into the live chat and answer even more of your questions. So Rachel, we have a question that is from Dawn Wishart's class from Earl Oxford School in Brandon, Manitoba. And their question is, are chickens actually the closest relative to dinosaurs?
So this is a very good question. This is the first time when you sent me the questions, I was like, you know, I had never heard of that before, but you know, we'll get this guy back here again. I did some research and looking up on this, and it actually would make sense. So if you would look at a chicken like this, and you look at, say, like a T-Rex, right? They're very similar they're on their 2 feet. They have a big, much more, there we go. He's getting excited here now. So their stance is very similar to a T-Rex. So I can see the similarities for that for sure. I also did some looking, and I actually saw they did some research of DNA in the dinosaur, and there was very similar DNA from the T-Rex to the chicken. So
really?
yeah, I had no idea. So, you know, Thanks for asking that question, guys, because I learned something new myself about that there is some connection between the T-Rex and the chicken.
Amazing. Thank you, Earl Oxford School, for bringing that question forward. That's super cool.
Yeah, did not know that. See, we all learned something.
We do. Always learning. Amazing.
Yes.
Second question is from Carol Hill's class, and they are from South Oaks Elementary School in Grunthal. And the question is, what do you have to do to take care of your chickens?
Great. Another great question. So as you kind of saw in the video, the things that we look at, but I would love to recap. So things that we're looking at, we're walking through the barns multiple times a day. It's always great to visually and physically walk through to make sure. So we'll walk all the way to the far end and back because we want to see everything and make sure it's all running. So things that we're looking at here, I'll even pivot over here. So things that we're looking for. So in this barn, it's a different barn than what we made the video in, just because of Wi-Fi and all that stuff. So it's a little different than what the video shows. But these still here, these are the water lines. The silver tab is right here where my finger is. So that's where we get the water. You can actually see it drip off the nipple there. That's we're checking to make sure that they have water available to them all the time because, if they're thirsty, they need to be able to drink. So we're checking that there's water available. The feed pans are in the back there. We're making sure there's feed inside the feed inside the feed pans. And then we're looking just at general comfort, air quality, ventilation, making sure the fans are running when they should be, and just that the birds are comfortable throughout the entire barn. And yeah, just checking that on a daily helps them grow, and that's what we want to see.
Very cool. Yeah, well, it seems like it's an around-the-clock thing that you have to do to care for those chickens, make sure they're healthy and well-fed and well-watered and warm. And so that's pretty amazing to learn about for sure. We have another question here from Madame Roberts from West Bend Remote Learning Consortium, Brandon. And their question is, do chickens grow bonds with any of the workers?
So we don't consider these animals to be our pets. We look at them as livestock because we are raising them for food, right? So we will raise them so that we're going to eat them in the end. So we don't have that pet connection bond, but we do have a different bond with the birds. As you can see, I'm wearing coveralls now that are dark shade. So when we walk through the barn, we wear the same similar color clothing all the time so they get used to what we're wearing inside the barn. So they know, oh, this is the same. This is the farmer. The farmer's coming to walk through the barn. Sometimes I'll even knock on the door from the front entrance of the barn to where the barn or into the barn area here with the birds, just so they know, okay, someone's coming, there's a noise, and they kind of perk up and they look. So when you walk in, they kind of all look, oh yeah, here comes the farmer. And so it's more of a bond that they get familiar with you. If you would have, we limit visitors coming into the barn for a number of reasons. One, we talked about in the video about biosecurity. We want to keep the birds healthy and safe. So disease prevention, that's why we limit lots of visitors, but also because the birds aren't used to lots of people coming into the barn. They're used to like the myself or whichever barn they're in, that producer coming in. So that's kind of, they get that bond of that way with the farmer. That's about the closest bond that we do have with the birds.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, any animal, if someone's providing it food and water and care, it makes sense that they would recognize you and make that relation in that way, right?
Yeah.
Very neat. Yeah. Very neat. So our next question is actually a video question, and this question is from Keaton.
Hello, my name is Keaton, and I'm in grade 4 at Springfield Heights School in Winnipeg. And my question is, how do chickens stay clean? Do you bathe them?
If I had to bathe every single chicken in this barn, that would be a lot of work. So thankfully, they clean themselves. So they'll peck at their feathers and make sure they're clean. But they don't actually get very dirty themselves, right? So the bedding that we have in here is nice straw. So we keep it nice and clean, nice and dry in here, and then the birds don't get dirty. I do know in some of our older birds, more so in our breeder barns, so the barns where our parents have, so we have our hens and our roosters to get our fertilized eggs to get these birds, there they dust bathe more because they're much older birds, so they kind of ruffle in the straw and kind of, shake and that kind of thing. But for the most part, we keep our barns nice and clean and dry, and then the birds actually stay fairly clean, and then any little dirt that they do get on, they can clean it themselves. So no bath time every day before bedtime in the barn.
So a little bit different than you, Keaton, where you use shampoo and conditioner and soap.
Exactly.
Seems like chickens use the dust and the bedding. It's very interesting to know.
A different way, yeah. Using the dirty potential, yeah, it does. We don't use a cleaner, yeah, a little different, but it's good.
Very, very neat. Thanks, Keaton. So next question is from Reese, and he is from Miss Johnson's class from Carmen Elementary in Carmen. And they were wondering, this is a good one for you, Rachel, how much money does it cost to start a chicken farm? And where does a person get that money from?
That is a very loaded question. So the cost to start a farm, it's very expensive. I'll just start off with that. So it's very expensive to start because in Manitoba here, actually across Canada, our broiler farmers are on a quota system, which means we're under supply management. Supply management means we raise chicken enough to meet the demand of consumers. So you guys at home, when your mom and dad go and buy food, we know the demand that they need it, and that's what we raise the chicken for. Now, a quota means we have like a license or the permission and ability to raise the birds. So we have to purchase this license to be able to raise the birds. So you have that price of the license or the quota, then you have the price of the barn. So now this barn, it's quite big. Now barn sizes,
very long.
Here,
Wow.
I'll put you a little perspective. So there's different barn sizes and there's different styles of barns. So depending on the style of the barn, the size of your barn depends on your cost. To throw a number out there for you guys, this barn could be around $750,000. Some barns are up to $1 million. So if you want to give a little perspective, a number-wise, it's a big number when we're talking into the millions. So it's expensive to get into the farm because you need, so we have the license, we have the quota or the barn, and then just your feed and your general expenses to keep it warm. You have to have it nice and warm here in the barn just to keep the birds, because the chicks like it nice and warm. So in winter time when it's -40 outside, we need to have it almost +30 inside, or we need to have it over +30 in the barn when they're chicks. So heating bills, costs. So there's a lot of different costs. So it's expensive. But thankfully, we can go to banks and financial institutes to help us borrow the money so we can have these operations to provide food for you guys.
Wow. We're so fortunate to have farmers like you that take those costs on to grow our food. That's amazing. I have a question for you, Rachel. Obviously in Manitoba, we get very cold winters. How warm do you have to keep your chicken barn to keep it comfortable for the chickens?
Well, you can see my cheeks are a little flushed right now because it is quite warm in here. So they're 5 days old. So when they first come, when we place them in the barn, it is 32 to 33 degrees Celsius. So it's cooled off a bit because as the birds get older, they don't need it to be as warm. So we can cool the temperature off. So in here right now, I think it's about 30. So it's pretty warm. So when you come in here from winter time, from -30 to +30, it's like going on a Mexican vacation inside the barn because it's toasty warm in here.
Well, it's perfect being a farmer during COVID because none of us could travel anywhere to Mexico to keep warm. So you could just go in your barn and heat up in there.
Exactly. We got the heat here. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. All right. So our next question is from Gladstone Elementary School from Miss Semler's class. And they're wondering, how much poultry does the average Canadian eat per year?
Very good question. So chicken is actually the #1 meat that is eaten in Canada, actually. So I actually went and looked at the stats to figure this out. So the average person, so individual person, Canadian, eats 34.4 kgs or kilograms, or equivalent to 75.8 pounds of chicken per year.
Wow.
So if you want to compare 75, almost 76 pounds to, what's a good comparison?
76,
maybe your sibling. Depends on the age of it. But yeah, it's a good chunk of weight that everybody eats. And so it's awesome that so many people love chicken because I got to keep producing it for you guys.
Definitely. Very, very neat. Next question is from Maggie, and she is coming in all the way from Lactabani from Centennial School.
Hi, Rachel. I'm Maggie. I'd like to ask you, how many chickens do you have?
So in this barn, so it actually depends on barn size. So in Manitoba, we have every barn size, so smaller, bigger. This is a bigger barn size. In here, I did forget to check right before I came in here to see the exact number, but I believe there's around 16 to 17,000 chickens in here. So there's a lot. You can see kind of all the yellow kind of just goes all the way to the back. That's all. Those are all chicken there. So depending on the barn size, depends on how many chicken go in there. So every single barn in Manitoba is certified to place chicken in, and we calculate the square footage in the barn, how many feeders, how many waters, to certify how many birds can go in each barn so that they have enough space that they can move around in the barn and eat and drink and that kind of thing.
Very, very interesting. I'm curious, Rachel, if you could share with the students, I know that there's a process that you go through in between bringing in new flocks of birds. Can you share a little bit on that? And also, how do the chicks arrive to your barn? Where do you get them from?
Yeah, so after this flock gets out, so these guys are 5 days old. They'll go till about 32 to 33 days old. So we got a couple more weeks before they're ready for market. But once then they're ready for market, then they get loaded up onto semi-trucks and brought to the processing plant. And then us as the farmer are left with a dirty barn and a lot of work to do. So what we do is we kind of bring out, we scrape all the bedding. So as I said in the video, it turns into manure at that point. We scrape that all out with the tractor or the skid steer. And then we bring in a pressure washer. So high water pressure that's nice and warm. So it cleans the barn. So we wash the walls down, ceiling, the feeders, the waters. We wash it all down, make sure it's nice and clean. We disinfect it to make sure there's no bad bacteria in the barn. And then we get ready for the new chicks to come that will come. So we have every 7 weeks, we are getting a new flock of birds.
Wow.
So the birds are in here. So yeah, I said 33 days. So about 5 weeks. So we have about 2 weeks of downtime to clean out the barn, wash it down, and then get it ready for the next flock. And then we get the next flock.
That's a big job.
It's a busy time during that down period, but it's always exciting to get a new flock. And then your second question, you said ask for how they arrive in the barn, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so I think there was a picture in the intro. There we go. It pops up. So we bring in all the birds in through these crates. So those crates each have 100 chickens inside them, and we gently take them out of the crates and place them around. So in the picture, you can see there's that brown paper that we call chick paper, and then there's actually feed on top of that paper that we have so that the birds are land right on that, so they have immediate access to feed in right away. And then we lower the water lines down because they'll come right on top of the birds at that point, and then that's how we bring them into the barn.
Very neat. So it seems like they're introduced into an amazing atmosphere with food and water right at their at their beak tips right away. Awesome.
Yeah, they have it right away. Whenever they're thirsty and hungry, they have access to it.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that, Rachel. So we'll move on here. We have another question from Brock Corden School in Winnipeg from Mr. Fieldstead's class. Do different types, shapes, or even colors of feathers help the chickens move and do activities differently?
This is another good question. So for us in Manitoba here, all of our chickens are the same. They're all white. So that's kind of the color that their feathers will turn into. They're kind of yellowy right now because they still have the chicken or the duff that we call it. So it's a little more of a fluff that they are hatched out of their egg with. And then it will turn into white feathers. For the most part, it doesn't really change as far as different activities. A lot of people ask, can these chickens fly? Not great. Every once in a while, they try to jump up onto the lines here. and then they'll attempt to fly off, but it's very short-lived, so they can't fly great. So these chickens are right there. The genetic base is for them to produce meat. So they do have like they're bigger, more meat on their bones, so they're not light chickens. So they don't fly great. So as far as that, the only thing you can tell with the feathers, when they're a day old or when after they've been hatched out of the egg for the next 24 hours, you can actually tell if it's a male or female by the length of the feathers on their wings. So you would open up their wings, and this is only with the first day, so you can't do it now because it's already changed. But if you open up their wings, the different lengths, then you can see if it's a hen or it'll be a female or male at that point. But in Manitoba, we use the males and the females, so we don't need to do that. But it's just kind of a little fun fact that you can check that way.
Yeah. So what would be the difference? How would you tell a male apart from a female when you are looking at their wing?
So the females will have two different lengths of feathers, and then the males will all have the same length.
Okay. Very, very neat. I'm learning something new. So we have two more questions here for the pre-submitted questions. So we'll dive into James Edwards' class from Rivers Elementary School is wondering, why do roosters crow?
Another good question, man. You guys are coming up with great questions. So most people think, why does a rooster crow? They crow in the morning and, because to wake everyone up. But, I would say that's a little false, just because I hear roosters crow all day, all the time. So I did look into this, and I did see potentially that they actually crow to mark or to know or to let people know what level they are in their territory, so that they crow and then this is my territory in my area. I was like, well, that could be it. That's an interesting theory, right? So is that the reason why they crow all the time? Maybe a combination of it's early in the morning, so they crow in the morning, but then they feel like, oh, I need to puff my feathers and crow to let people know that I'm the top. That could be another reason too. But I think it's just every animal has their call, and I think that's just the chicken call is just their good old cock-a-doodle-doo, and so that's how it works.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. They're trying to get the attention of others and let everyone know that they're there.
Exactly.
Awesome. So the last question that we have for this portion of the event is coming from Emerson School in Winnipeg from Jacob and Grant.
Go. Hi, my name is Jacob. My name is Grant. We have two questions to ask you. Number one, what do you like about being a chicken farmer?
Number two, like digging. What did I say?
Smell.
Smell.
What do chickens smell like? Thank you.
So kind of 2 for 1 there, Rachel.
I love it. All right, so we'll start with the first one. What do I love about chicken farming? That's a great question. So there's a lot of things that I do love about it. Number one, I love just being in the barn. Honestly, sitting here in the barn right now, and you can hear the birds and you can see them, and they're just, eating and drinking, and they're just enjoying things, and they're comfortable. And I just love seeing that. I love the challenges that, trying to raise a good, healthy bird for you guys as consumers, and just trying new things to make sure that the birds get the best care possible. Another thing I love, as I said earlier in the video, is I live on a family farm, so I get to work with my parents and my brothers So now I know some people are like, siblings, you don't always like working with that, but I love it. We get along great, and we kind of all, we manage our own barns, so we're each in charge of our own barn, and then we get a little competitive towards each other about oh, how are your birds doing, or versus how are mine doing? And it's just fun that we get to work together. We work together to clean the barns out. It's a family affair. We all put in the long days and work together to get the job done quickly. And, it's fun. And yeah, I love the industry and I love chickens. A lot of my friends call me the chicken lady, right? So I got a name for it, and I love it. So I love that about chicken farming.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah. And the other question, what do chickens smell like? So that's also a very good question. I have never, let's see if I can catch one, and I can smell one here. All right, we got one here. You know, he smells quite clean. He doesn't smell like a farm animal. You can smell, like in the barn, it can smell, you know, like as they get older, it smells clean now, but as they get older, it can smell a little bit like manure because there is some manure in the barn, but he smells quite clean. I don't know what that's.
He's doing a good job of his bathing.
Yeah, he's standing up tall. There we go, showing off.
Very, very neat. Thanks for those questions, Jacob and Grant. Great questions. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for answering all these questions that came in from students and classes ahead of time. It's amazing to hear about how much is involved in chicken farming, and that you always go above and beyond to do what's best for your animals and to raise them well and keep them well fed and well cared for. So it looks like we do have time to dive into some of the live questions in the chat. So what we'll do is we have my colleague Kira working in the back end there. She's going to be pulling in some questions from the live chat, and we'll bring them up on the screen, and we'll do something similar to what we did, where I can ask you the question and we'll go from there and see how many we can answer for everyone watching today. All right. So the first question, what type of meat and veggies do they eat?
There we go. All right. So actually in their feed, I talked briefly about it in the video very quickly. So I'll kind of go more in depth with it. So our feed is grain based. So more of a corn and wheat is the main base inside the in the feed that they eat. We do add some vitamins and nutrients in them just to make sure they're getting all the nutrients and vitamins that they do need. We do put a soy meal sometimes in there for their protein. Sometimes it's a meat meal as well, but not like they're not getting carrots and potatoes, those kinds of things. They do get them from other ways. So yeah, a corn and wheat is the biggest, kind of the biggest base inside the feed that they eat.
Okay, very, very neat. Thank you. All right, do you have another question coming through, Kira? All right, so this one's from Karen. How old can chickens live to?
Well, our chickens don't live as, we have a certain time frame that we keep them alive, just for the reason that, you know, grocery stores and restaurants want a certain size chicken. So we raise to what the restaurant wants, or what the grocery store size wants. So our birds only last to 28 to 33 days. How long can a chicken last? I bet years would be my guess, depending on the breed. I know that might also put into fact of that. So it could be fair. I'm sorry, I can't give you an exact number, but yeah, I think can live for a fair amount of years for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one either. So that's something I'll have to Google after this.
Exactly.
All right. A question from Miguel. How do you know if it is a male or a female? So I know you talked about earlier about the wings, right, when they arrive to you.
Yes.
Are there any other distinguishing factors as they age that you can tell them apart?
Right. So right now they're in like the stage where you can't tell quite as easily. As they get older, you'll be able to see. So a lot of people can tell which one the rooster is from the good old thing that sits on his head called the comb, right? So the comb is a good way for you to see that's the rooster. And he'll often be a little bit bigger, because roosters do get a bit bigger. Hens, they will have a smaller comb. It's much shorter. So that's kind of the big difference, as when they get older, that you can tell the difference between the two.
So in your chicken barn, do you have both males and females? I'm assuming so. Okay.
Yes.
And do they grow? I'm just curious, do they grow at different rates, Rachel? Do they produce meat in different ways with regards to weight, final weight?
Yeah, so they grow actually pretty uniform or very similar together. So you can't usually tell there's a bit different. You know, there's maybe one that's a bit bigger or the other, but they're fairly consistent that grow equal throughout the whole time that they're in the barn here. So, you can only really get to see which is the hens and the roosters once they get old enough that you can see their comb, which at the end of by like probably around 25 days, you can start to see that already. So you can tell at that point which is the roosters and which is the females. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we keep hens and or the males and the females. We don't separate them out. We put them all together, and that's how we do things here.
Okay, very, very neat. All right, Harvey, do you breed chickens and hatch your own eggs?
So that is a good question. So on our farm, we do not do that. So we actually have farms in Manitoba. We actually have 23 of them to be exact, that we call breeder farms. And on that breeder farm, we have the hens and the roosters together to get our fertilized egg. Now, these birds here come from those farms, from those fertilized eggs. So they start at the breeder farm, and then the eggs then go to the hatchery. They sit in an incubator in the hatchery for 21 days, and then they hatch out of the eggs at the hatchery and then get brought onto climate-controlled trucks and then brought to our farm here. So we don't hatch the eggs and we don't have the breeders, so that's a different farm. But yeah, it's all in Manitoba that we are able to get the birds from a local farmer around here.
Okay. I'm learning so much myself. This is great. All right, so another question here from Kira. What kind of chicks are in the barn?
So I'm guessing kind of the breed, I'm going to guess with that.
So, yeah.
So the breed that we have, the genetics it's called a Ross bird. So that's the genetic, and then there's a number behind that. That's kind of I don't know how to describe more than that, but it's a Ross bird. That's the breed that we use here. It's been a great bird. So yeah, it's a great growing chicken, and they look good, and they produce great meat. So that's awesome.
Amazing. Do you know, Rachel, is that the common breed across Manitoba for broiler chickens? Yeah.
Yes. So in Manitoba it is. I do believe different provinces might have different ones. I don't know for sure. But I know in Manitoba we're mostly a Ross breed for the chickens that we use.
Okay. That's interesting to know. So if you're eating local chicken, everyone, then you know what is being produced predominantly in Manitoba. Very cool. Awesome. Okay, I think we still have some time for some more questions here, so we can keep bringing them in and see if we can expand everyone's knowledge a little bit more. From Drake. Ooh, I love the jet symbol. Go Jets. When the chicks are born, why are they yellow?
So when they come out of the egg, it's called like a duff. It's like a fuzzy coating on them, or coating, I don't know. Instead of feathers, they just have this duff. And why are they born that way? That's just the way, I guess, because once they dry up, because when they come out of the egg, they are very exhausted, because it can take up to 24 hours for them to hatch out of the egg. So by the time they're done hatching, they're exhausted. They're so tired, they just want to sleep. So I guess and they're kind of covered in kind of like the egg goop that's inside there. So they're wet. So as they dry, then they have this duff that they keep, and I guess it just keeps them warm for the first bit. And then as they start to grow, it turns into feathers. That's kind of how it goes. As to why it's yellow, I have no. That's just the way the animal is.
I mean, that's a great question. It's just, I guess, it's very interesting to hear about how long it takes them to hatch too. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it's quite a process. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, another question here. Are there different species of chickens?
Yes. You know what? I have actually a poster of all the different kinds of species of chicken, and there was like, oh boy, I want to say there was like 50 different kinds.
Oh wow!
All different kinds. It's a super cool poster. I should have thought to bring it along. That shows all the different kinds. So there's tons of different kinds of chickens that you can see. I'm sure if you would Google different species of chickens, you'll probably come up with a lot of those as well.
Interesting. Have you, Rachel, been growing the same type of chicken for the majority of the time, or do you ever vary it up or switch it up, or you stick with what is producing well? And
yeah, so they've changed some of the genetics in the birds, right, so that they're able to become a stronger bird. So the genetics sometimes have changed, but for the most part, it's been the same bird, just a little changes in some things here and there to help them as well.
Okay, cool. All right. All right, from the CDP and Crazy Games. I like that YouTube name there. Do you have albino chickens?
I would say no, because they're all kind of the same, but they are white, but that's normal. So then I wouldn't say it's like a specific or a specialty one or anything like that. So
yeah,
I'll say no on that that one.
Thank you. From Cameron, how did you get your first chickens?
How did I get my first chickens? Well, I would say it's a similar process. We got them from the hatchery. So, once we had the farm, now I grew up I was the third generation chicken farmer. So the farm has been in my family for 3 years. So my grandpa was the first one to get the first chicken on the farm. But then, it goes from generation to generation. So, the chickens come from the hatchery every 7 weeks, and that's how we get our chicken.
Amazing. How are we looking there, Kira? We still have a lot of questions flooding in. Oh, here's another one from Gabrielle. Do you have any chickens, or do you have only chicks?
All right. So chicks actually turn into chickens. So chicks is kind of the baby term for a chicken. So we have chicks, we usually say, for the first, maybe week or two. We say, we have chicks on the farm. But once they get a bit older, over like 10 to 15 days old, then we say, we got chickens on the farm. Because once they're not a baby anymore, they get older. So then we have chickens. So we call them starting out as chicks, and then they grow into chickens.
So the chicks behind you, in about 5 days, they will be called chickens.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, James, instead of giving chickens for market, do you ever set one free?
No, we always send ours to market. The thing is if you would set one free, there's a lot of predators out there that want to eat chicken too. So that's also one reason why we keep them inside a barn, is to protect them from, as I said before, disease. So with our biosecurity, but also predators. Predators. Manitoba, we have lots of coyotes and foxes and wolves and eagles and all these animals. They all love chicken just as much as we do too. So having them outside, they could get hurt other ways, or another animal could get them. So we send all of our birds to market. So yeah, we don't let them go outside for that reason. Thanks,
Rachel. Good question. So it seems like that's the majority of the questions from the live chat. So provided we don't have any other ones pop up, I think we're going to start wrapping things up here. And I want to thank you again, Rachel, on behalf of Agriculture in the Classroom and our entire team. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for providing this amazing tour for us and this question and answer period, for welcoming all of us, almost 1,400 students across the province.
That's awesome.
Into this tour. And I know that I learned a lot, and I'm sure that students across the province learned a ton as well. And we're just really, really grateful to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, students, for your awesome questions. And, hopefully we'll be able to do AAA in person again soon, even though I know this is a great experience that we weren't able to do before then. So, there are some perks with of COVID, and we were not able to see each other, but I'm really glad I got to show you guys inside my barn. And just, I can hear them. We'll give you a better move around so you can see a better view of all the birds there. They're running around. Lots of them are sleeping. They're tired. Some are eating in the background.
from you about what you thought of this event, and teachers as well, obviously. And we hope that you enjoy the in-class activities that we sent your way, and hope that you've learned something new about chicken farming from Rachel today. Please feel free to send us some pictures and updates of what you're doing in your classrooms, and we will enter you in the last month of our Teach A contest. And teachers, you have the chance to win a $50 Chapters gift card to buy some new books for your students in the classroom. And once again, we want to thank Rachel and Manitoba Chicken Producers for working with us on providing this event to teachers and students across Manitoba. And kids, enjoy your last few weeks of school. And Rachel, you as well, enjoy your summer. And thank you everyone for attending. We really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much. See ya, everyone.
Bye, everyone.